Okay, fellas, so we're out here today, and what was that? Looked like a gar surface. Well, anyway, I'm out here today to do, I guess, the casting, or I should say casting demonstration video of the latest and greatest BFS reel from China, the Haibo Arise Ultra Air. And I have the reel mounted on my GARCIA Salty Stage BFS prototype rod, ultralight power, moderate taper, and the line I'm using is some cheap Zebco 4-pound monofilament, and you can see that it's clear colored instead of the normal yellow color I use. And that's because the original plan today was to do some trout fishing with this, but unfortunately it's the weekend, and where I live, whenever it's the weekend, all the accessible fishing spots are full of loud drunk people. But the combo looks sick. I think that these white knobbed covers look awesome, and I ordered 2 more set of them to put on my other Arise reels. But anyway, let's get started. Okay, so let me show you the lure I'm going to be casting. It's a little Lucky Craft jerkbait. I forget the name of it. It's some kind of a pointer. It's not the 48, it's some kind of a 50 size, but I think it's around 4.5 grams or something like that. I'll put a picture of it on the scale for you guys. But of course, what we're going to do now is we're going to set the reel up, and there's a lot of fish action. I think I might be able to catch something today. But I'm going to set the spool tension to just minimize the side-to-side play. And just think of this video as I guess a brake tutorial. For anyone who is eyeing one of these reels or any of the Haibo reels that have this brake system, and you're kind of intimidated by just how many adjustments these reels have, I'm going to show you, hopefully today with this Ultra Air, that these reels are very beginner friendly. All right. So spool tension is set. Looks to be a, oh shit. I just barely dropped my lure in the water and some fish went for it. But now what we're gonna do is we're gonna adjust, I guess, what I would call the main brake adjustment, and that's gonna be the internal rotor. So of course I'm gonna take the side plate off, and I'm gonna twist the rotor until it is on setting number 3, which is the setting that's going to give us the most powerful amount of braking. Okay, and I'll put the rotor back on, and I'm going to jack the external dial up to the maximum position. So right now, this reel is pretty much locked down brake-wise. And make sure my drag is set, and let's start casting. All right, I don't know if you guys can see where that landed, but just like with the Arise Air, I remember this reel is a very smooth caster. I hear a little bit of humming, a little bit of casting noise. Look at that. I barely even have to stop the spool with my thumb. Actually, I didn't stop the spool with my thumb, as you saw. But I'm going to throw my lure up into this bait ball here. See what happens. I'm surprised there's no loud drunk people here. I got lucky. But anyway, I'm going to do one more cast. Look at that. Just a small little overrun if I didn't stop the spool with my thumb. So when this braking system is locked down, it is extremely beginner friendly. And if you want to, you can tighten up the spool tension to get rid of that small little backlash. But personally, I wouldn't do that if I were you. But with this lure, we're getting out there about, I don't know, almost 30 yards. Look at that. Easy, easy. Decent distance too, with the brakes pretty much locked down. Okay, I'll do a few more. And cranking in this little jerk bait, especially with these rubber knob covers, it's very smooth. I wouldn't say Shimano like, but these knob covers, they make all the difference in the world when you're doing these cranking techniques. Okay, so what I'm going to do is off camera, I'm going to try to dial down the external dial as low as it'll go in this rotor setting and let you guys see what this reel can do. Okay, so change in plan. I actually snagged that Lucky Craft jerkbait. So we're going with this cheap Chinese trout lure. I think it weighs like almost 4 grams. And with this lure, I was able to go down on the external dial 22 clicks. So it's just a little over halfway on the dial. And we got a wind coming from my left to my right. So it's gonna be a good test, but here we go. Okay, boom. Hopefully you guys saw that. I know there's a lot of chop on the water, but we'll do a few more. Smooth casting and smooth cranking. Now, we are probably getting a little over 30 yards, probably close to 100 feet on these casts. Now, is that impressive? Honestly, I don't know. You have to compare it to other reels side by side, but I mean, that's getting out there. We'll do a few more. Sidearm. And then I'm gonna turn the external dial back up just so you guys can see the difference. So we have all this external dial adjustability to play with if we need more brake. So once again, if you're a beginner and you are eyeing one of these Haibo reels that have this brake system and you are kind of intimidated by the sheer amount of adjustability, don't be. The system is very user-friendly, and with this system, I mean, you can grow with it. Okay, last cast. Boom. That went out there at least 110, 115 feet. Okay, so let's crank these brakes all the way to the max. All right, so we're probably looking at a loss of about at least 5 yards of distance, about 12 to 15 feet, I think. So look at that. No thumbing necessary. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to go to the rotor and we're going to adjust the rotor to the number 2, which is less braking than number 3. Going to keep the external dial on maximum. And let's see how it casts now. Okay, boom. Immediately, you can see that we probably got another at least 5 to maybe 8 feet of casting distance just by switching the internal rotor position. One thing I can feel as well is that the spool definitely has kind of woken up a little. It's gotten freer casting. It's faster. Boom. So we're getting almost to the casting distance of rotor setting 3 on its minimum brake setting. All right, we'll do one more. Ooh, had some overrun there. Bad cast on my part. Worked itself out. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to see how low I can go on the external brake dial. Okay, so remember how I could adjust this brake dial 22 clicks from its maximum position when the rotor was on 3? Well, with the rotor on 2, at least with this setup, I could only go down 3 clicks, and only with the sidearm cast. So let me show you what the Ultra Air can do now. Boom. So from what I'm looking at, we're pretty much matching the previous setting as far as distance goes. Maybe getting a few feet more. Probably, I would say about 5 foot more casting distance on some of these casts, but I am on the limit. I'm on the limit of the brakes. I'm seeing a little bit of fluffing in the middle of the cast. Boom. So there is a little bit of performance gain to be had by going down to the number 2 rotor setting over the number 3. Now I'm going to show you a couple of overhead casts if I don't blow the spool up. But yeah, when I was trying overhead cast, I blew the spool up a few times, and full disclosure, the line did get caught between the spool and the frame one time. Boom. Okay, one more cast. Ooh. Boom. So if you're a beginner, you can, I guess, try to cast in the number 2 rotor setting. Let's see if we can go thumb free. I clicked the brakes all the way up to max. Let's see if we can go thumb free on the number 2 rotor setting. Well, on a nice lob cast, it looks like we can. Okay, let's try overhead. Yep, looks like we can. Wow. So beginners to BFS should find this reel extremely easy to set up and cast without having to worry about the headaches of overruns and backlashes if you're paying attention. All right, now we're gonna attempt to go to the number 1 rotor setting, which gives us the least amount of brakes internally. And when I tried to do this on the Arise Air, if I recall, I was not able to cast at all. The spool immediately blew up, but let's see what the Ultra Air can do. Here we go. Oh, yeah. That was just an easy sidearm lob cast, and this spool wanted to explode. Luckily, I stopped it. So, I mean, I don't know who would be able to access the number 1 rotor setting. I mean, you could be casting a heavier, really aerodynamic lure, maybe, but then I don't consider that to be bait finesse weights. I'm sure I could thumb the spool all the way through the cast, but I doubt I'm gonna get any kind of performance increase. And then looks like, yeah, the line got caught between spool and the frame and wrapped around the rotor. I don't think I had this problem with the Arise Air, but that line I was using was probably thicker. Okay, so I stuck the rotor back in the number 2 position. I know you guys can't see this, but there are tens of thousands of little minnows, look like shad, swimming through here. I'm gonna tie on another jerkbait when I'm done and see if I can catch something that's chasing them. But let's wrap up my impressions on this Arise Ultra Air. Now this reel is supposed to be gunning for Japan's best. Talking ALDEBARAN BFS, SS Air TW. Boom, look at that. Xenon LTZ or LTX, but the reel costs much less. I think like $160 something, which is cheaper than when it first came out, because it costed like 190 bucks when I first saw it. And if you want one of these reels, I'm going to leave a link pinned to the top of the comments, Don Quinn Fishing, and they're having a promotion right now where you get 2 free Baitfinesse swim baits with your purchase in the month of August. But man, look at that, just how easy it is to cast this reel. Of course I do have a backwind, but in my opinion, I think this reel will easily outcast the SS Air, maybe outcast ALDEBARAN, and maybe outcast a Xenon, maybe. Of course, I'd have to cast them side by side and do some measurements to see if that is really true. But the casting is very smooth. As you can see, the brakes are extremely effective. You could literally leave it on the number 3 rotor setting and just mess around with the dial and you'll be fine. You can access probably 90% of its casting ability. But as your skills get better, you can drop that rotor to number 2 or maybe even number 1 if you have the guts to do it and try to max out performance that way. So you're not stuck with a reel that is just over braked and you can't get any more performance out of it. It's pretty much with all these Arise reels that have this brake system. So yeah, the Arise Ultra Air, beautiful reel, cast super smooth, cranks pretty smooth with these rubber knob covers that come with it standard. And the next time you see this reel, if I don't catch a fish out here, it's going to be going up against Japan's best in a cast battle. All right, guys, thanks a lot.